Hi, I'm C.C. Péan, and this is Reclaiming Your Health.
Hey y'all, good evening and welcome. Wait, let me get in the frame. Welcome to Reclaiming Your Health. So good to have you all here with me this evening. As you can see, I'm in a totally different kitchen. I think this is maybe the third kitchen since I've been in New Orleans. I don't know. But thank you for joining us this evening. I'm so happy to have you here. I don't know why I'm yelling, but I like to project my voice. I want to make sure you're hearing me. This evening, we are making a dish that I'm so excited about. So most of you all know that I'm from California. I'm a Cali girl. I grew up in an environment that was so incredibly multicultural. I grew up going to San Francisco Junior Academy, whoop, whoop, and my school was a mosh of Japanese, of Korean, of Filipino, of Samoan, of Honduran, El Salvadorian, um, hi Lana, um, Haitian, African American, Russian, like everything. Literally, I feel like every single ethnicity was represented at my school. And it was such great exposure growing up because lunchtime. And so many of us were first generation kids that what we brought to school was our parents' food. Seldom did you see like peanut butter and jelly or bologna and cheese. It was always like pancit, chicken adobo, pierogi from the Russians, pupusas from the El Salvadorians, menudo soup, like all these incredible things. And I realize now that that's probably like what really gave me this curiosity about food, and especially food from an international perspective. So again, I grew up in California, and one of the things that I loved eating that I've had to get over since I transitioned to a plant-based lifestyle was sushi. Yes, I loved sushi. And one thing in particular I really, really liked was spicy tuna on crispy rice. There's this place in Calabasas called Shibuya. It's about this big, and they have this rice that's like super crispy that they deep fry, and then they have this tuna that they chop up with mayo and sriracha and scallions, and it is delicious. Well, I said, you know what? I want to still experience something like that without the fish. So how do you do it? Tomato. This is the magical ingredient for tonight's dish. So my water is boiling already. Don't sleep on electric stoves. People make you think that you have to have a gas stove to, like, where is this now? I am in New Orleans. This is like my fifth move since I've been here. I'm in New Orleans at my apartment. Um, as I was saying, don't sleep on electric stoves. They get the job done. And they're not as destructive to our environment, by the way. So the star of tonight's dish is the tomato, aroma tomato to be exact. Now, in the recipe, in the ingredients that I gave you all that's listed, I said to get firm. They don't have to be hard, they need to be firm. The reason why is because these are going to get blanched in boiling hot water, and you don't want them to fall apart. So that's why they need to be, they need to be soft to touch, kind of like the cartilage of your ear. If it has that kind of give, that's what you're looking for your tomato. So that's the number one thing that's going. What we're going to do is we are going to create a marinade that mimics a fish flavor, an ocean flavor, a sea flavor. How are we going to do that? Well, let me tell you. We're going to use a few things. One of them is soy or tamari, of course, low sodium. The other is sesame oil. And the next thing that we're going to use that is really, really key to giving something a sea flavor are kelp granules. Now, kelp granules come from the sea. They provide iodine that's actually really, really good for us. So you can pick this up at Whole Foods or I know Sprouts has it. I don't know about Trader Joe, or you can always put some more money in Jeff Bezos's pocket and order it on Amazon. But this is key because this really has a fishy flavor. And so if you're going for that, this is what you want to use. Maybe you just want, you know, chopped tomato. But for what I'm trying to do for the poke bowl, which I know you all have seen that they have restaurants that's all they do is make poke. And to mimic that, we do need this kelp. Okay. So I bought these kelp granules, but interestingly enough, while I was in the store, I saw that they had a kelp puree as well. Interesting. I haven't tried it on this recipe, but I think it's interesting because it probably infuses even more because it doesn't have to break down as much as the granules do. We're also going to put some ginger in there. And then we're going to dress up this bowl. So the first thing that we need to do, I have my water going. I'm going to turn it back on so that it boils. I also have a bowl of water. I don't know if you can see overhead. Well, let me just lift it. I have a bowl of water. Optimally, this would be ice water, but I have a bowl of really cold water that I put in the freezer because I don't have any ice. But you just need to be really, really cold because that is going to be key for peeling, for the skin to come off easily from the tomatoes so you can peel them. So before I get started, there were a couple of questions that came through on the last show that I did not answer, and I want to answer them now. So people have been asking me, what type of pan do I use? And I don't know if you're referring to what I use in the actual recipe or what I would suggest you use. I love ceramic pans, ceramic and stainless steel. I know a lot of us have Teflon and we have nonstick pans. I'm not too excited about those. In general, I wouldn't suggest that you buy them. I have some in my repertoire, but I would not suggest you buy them. I would say ceramics cook up beautifully and they clean beautifully, as do stainless steel. What you need to do is just make sure that you use an oil spray, and that will help the cooking process very well. But avoid Teflon. I'm sure you all have seen somewhere somebody that has a pan that at one time was completely coated with Teflon and now there's just like a small spot. Part of that is because people don't always use wood utensils or plastic utensils or rubber utensils. They'll use like metal on that Teflon. And so what happens over time is you're literally scraping off that Teflon and it's getting into your food. That's not healthy. Okay, our water is boiling. So let me show you what we're going to do. For these tomatoes, excuse me, we are going to, I don't know if you all can see these comments, but Lana is flirting with me. So what you're going to do is you're going to cut an X right at the base of the tomato. Do you see that? You're going to cut an X. We're going to do that for all three of our tomatoes, right at the base. You don't have to go too deep. All right, so we did it again. Here's a third one. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop these into the boiling water and I'm going to boil them for between 20 to 30 seconds. Okay. 17, 16, 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Turn that off. Then we're going to take these tomatoes and drop them in this ice cold water. Okay, so I dropped them in this ice cold water. I don't know if you can see this. Okay, I'm going to make sure they're submerged. Move this off the fire. But I'm not going to dump it just in case I have not, in case it needs a little more heat on it. And what you should see is you should start to see that the skin, where are we? The skin is pulling away. You see that? Well, we cut them so it's easy for us to peel the skin off because in making this recipe, you don't use the skin. Okay, so that's why we have to do that. So you see, it's coming off. It's really a trial and error thing. Sometimes it comes off very easily, sometimes it doesn't. This one is peeling a lot easier. This one is peeling easier. And you don't want to use a knife to do this because then you're going to start to chip away at the actual tomato. Okay, so this one peeled rather easily. And so the recipe calls for 6 of these. I did some earlier because it needs to marinate, so that's why you only see 3 here. So here's a peeled tomato. Let's try another one. Yeah, these could have stood to. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to drop these back in this hot water just for a little bit longer. You don't want to keep them in here too long, but you know, I would say up to 45 seconds and you're okay. Let's see if that's any better. That one. So that's coming off a little better. You know, some people don't like tomato. You can actually even use watermelon for this if you wanted to. I know that sounds a little left field, but you're seasoning it up. And so it's a great vehicle for that flavoring. And if you think about the texture of watermelon and like an unpeeled tomato, it's really not that different. One of the things you do in the plant-based world is you get used to doing things non-traditionally. You know, we live in a society that tells us certain things should be eaten a certain way and only a certain way, and that's not necessarily the case. Okay, so that one's good. Now let's take out this last one. So there's all kinds of different things you can do. And what I say is just try it. You never know. You might like it. If you don't like it, just don't do it again. Okay. What I suspect is that the firmer the tomato, the longer you're going to have to blanch it. So I'm just using my nails to pull this off. How many of you are sushi lovers? How many of you miss fish? I'm a huge sushi lover. I was actually introduced to sushi by Marla Thomas. Her husband is Steve, the base Take Six. While I was at college, and it was so avant-garde at that point, like nobody was doing it. And Marla introduced me to it in all places, Nashville, Tennessee, and I've had a love affair with it ever since then. It's actually Marla Thomas and Don Lewis from a different world. Okay, so our tomatoes are now ready. Yolanda, you like it too? So our tomatoes are now ready. What we have to do is we're going to get this core out. Carefully cut that out. Okay, our core is out. And then we're going to cut these tomatoes in half. And we're going to use a spoon to get all this stuff inside out. We don't want that because we don't want like a watery tuna tomato thing. So we're going to get rid of the core and the seeds. So when it's left, it's going to look just like this. See that? You might have to rinse them. The little seed is left, that's fine. You just don't want a lot of that seed and pulp in there. Tomatoes are great for you, as I'm sure you know. There's the lycopene in tomatoes. They're also antioxidant, which is great. Okay, so we've got all 3 of our tomatoes, as the recipe calls for 6, but I told you that, oh, you still eat sushi, Yolanda? I did half of them ahead of time. So that is done. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to make the marinade, and you're going to see how easy it is to do this and how quickly we can do it. So we've got our bowl here. You're going to use either tamari or you're going to use soy sauce. Isn't fish the same as plantain? Or you? Oh, you're funny. We're going to use tamari or low sodium soy. You know, I'm very careful with the salt content. So we've got about 2 tablespoons that we're going to put in here. Now this is a marinade, so if you don't freak out about the amount, we've got 2 tablespoons of sesame oil. We have got some ginger. I'm going to use some ginger. My recipe calls for ginger puree, but I couldn't find it at my local store, so I'm going to use some fresh ginger. And I think I've shown you all that the best way to peel ginger is with a spoon. So I've got my little nub here. I'm using a spoon to get the skin off. Pureed ginger is actually best for this marinade, and I'll tell you why. Because it will melt in the marinade. You won't have chunks of it, and ginger can be quite spicy. So if you're not a ginger fan, the last thing you want to do is bite down a piece of ginger. I don't mind it, so this works for me. But if you're somebody who's not big on ginger, you definitely want to use the puree. So I'm just going to cut a little bit of this ginger, and then I'm going to mince it. Okay, that's going to go in our marinade as well. We're also going to use a little lime juice. That's going to go in there. And last but not least, we're going to put our kelp granules in here. This, again, is what gives it the fishy taste. So I'm going to use about a teaspoon of it. This is the kind of thing that you're just going to kind of play around with it and get the proportions that you like best to make the marinade that you want. I've used some of these things sometimes, and people have actually kind of been freaked out with how fishy it tastes, and they're like, oh, that tastes too fishy. So, you know, if you're somebody who's not familiar with fish and who's not big on fish, it might be problematic. But if you're a fish lover, it's going to be right up your alley. Okay, so our marinade is done. We didn't use much. Now we're just going to cut this. Now, I'm going to cut it kind of in chunks There are times when I've kind of minced this tomato, but I'm doing it in chunks now. I'm going to cut this like in 3 pieces, this, in 4. Now this is good. It needs to marinate for at least 30 minutes, but you can even marinate this up to a day. You could do it that long. I would just be sure to drain it, which is what I do, even with the ones that when I do it for 30 minutes, because you don't want it to be runny. See how easy this is? And we've got a firm tomato here, so it's not falling apart. And, you don't want it mushy without texture. All right, so we're done with that. Oops. Now we're going to just mix it up. See, that little bit of marinade is going to go a long way. I'm mixing that up. And we're just going to let that sit for about 30 minutes. You can pop it in the fridge, but you don't have to. Set it aside. Now we're going to work on all the other things that go in our bowl. I want to introduce you all to this incredibly delicious and nutritious rice that I discovered at my local Asian market. It is called Nishiki Premium Multigrain 7 Grains Rice. I love this rice. It's got Nishiki brown rice, quinoa, brown sweet rice, black rice, red rice, millet, and buckwheat groats. It's a real hearty, nutty, delicious, nutrient-dense rice. Now for this bowl, oftentimes people just like it with white rice, but we try to avoid that. So I suggest using something like this, or a nice brown rice, a short grain brown rice. Even cauliflower rice can go in this. And then you've got like a super complex carb meal. I don't know, maybe cauliflower rice would work. I'm not trying it this time. I'm using this, but it's a good suggestion to try that. Hey, Laura. So I did this. I have my other fixings here. I've got my avocado, I've got scallion, I've got cucumber, carrots. What I'm going to do, typically when people make this dish, I like the spiciness mixed up in my tuna. But I understand that everybody may not want to do it that way. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a sauce that's going to go on the top. It's just going to drizzle it on the top. And what else? You can do 2 things. You can either do it the traditional way by using sriracha. Well, actually, there's 3 different ways you can do it. You don't have to put sauce and spice on it at all. That's the first way. The second way is you can do the traditional way with the sriracha. The third way is to incorporate Afkave's Habesha spice and take your Asian tuna bowl to the Caribbean. That's what we're going to do tonight. All right. So our rice is done. Cook up our rice. I'm going to use my fork to fluff it up a little bit. Now, typically with this rice, what you would do is you would use a little rice vinegar. Rice that goes in rice bowls always has a little something to it. So I'm going to add a little bit of this rice vinegar. Traditionally, it's rice vinegar, a little salt, and a little sugar. We're not going to do all that. We're just going to use just a little bit of this rice vinegar. Just going to mix that in. See how hearty this looks? But it's not like, it's really filling, but it definitely has some softness to it. It's not super grainy. The other day I fixed some brown rice. I don't know what was wrong with that brown rice. That brown rice was supposed to cook for 20 minutes, and I literally cooked it for like an hour, and it was still hard. Crazy. All right. So let's get all of our stuff together. so we can build our bowl. We've got our avocado here. Can never have too much. Look at a perfect avocado. Look at that. Perfect, perfect, perfect. So I bought pre-shredded carrots just to make it easier. We've got a perfect avocado here. Whoop, whoop. And we've got our scallions. I'm gonna hold off on that. We are actually, let me do my sauce. Super simple. We're just gonna use a little bit of vegetables. Just a little bit, depending on how many bowls you're making. Oops. Just a little bit. Made a little bit of a mess there. Let me clean that up. We're going to use some of this Hibiscus spice. I like heat, so I'm using a good amount of it. And I'm going to use a little bit of this lime to loosen up the sauce a little bit. Okay. Just going to whip that up. I could actually stand to add a little more. Okay, so we've got our spicy Caribbean and Afro-Caribbean inspired vegetables. It's going to go on top. Okay, so that's done. Let me slice up this avocado. All righty, people. So I told you that I did some earlier, and that's been marinating, and that's this one. And as you can see, there's a lot of, see how much liquid came off of that from the tomato and from the marinade. So that's why I said you need to drain it. So I'm going to use this strainer and just get all that liquid off of there. That was a good, that was like a good half cup, I think, of liquid. You don't want it in your, you don't want a runny bowl. Okay. I'm glad you all can't see the sink because it's a mess. So here is our tomato / tuna. Let's make our bowl. We're going to start with our 7-grain rice. Just put that in the center. We're going to take our tuna now. Put that. Ooh, that looks yummy. We're going to add some of our carrot. Add some of our cucumber. Use some of this avocado here. Oh, this looks so good. And you all, you've been here with me, so you know how simple this is. It's not complicated. Okay, I want to dress this up a little bit. So I'm going to put a little bit of scallion. I'm just going to chop up a little bit of scallion. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. Sprinkle it over the top. Let me put my sauce on first. Right near the tomato. Now, what you can also do to this is you can add some pickled ginger, some sushi ginger, and I actually bought some. We're going to use a little bit of that. Put a little bit of it. So this is going to be like a flavor explosion. A little bit of that on there. A little bit of the sushi ginger, because this is, again, we're going for that whole Japanese flavor. And I've got some nori sheets, because sometimes you just like to take the nori sheets. I'm hungry too, Yolanda. I got you. I'll eat enough for you when I finish. And just kind of like fill it with all this good stuff. So I'm going to put a few of them on the side. Ladies and gentlemen, 100% vegan, spicy tuna bowl. We've got some beautiful Roma tomatoes that we have marinated in soy, in sesame, fresh ginger, kelp, and lime juice. We've got this super nutritious 7-grain multi-grain rice. We've got carrot shreds, avocado. We've got some spicy sauce featuring afkave sabesha spice. We've got some pickled ginger. We've got cucumber and some nori sheets. Look at this. I'm so proud. Doesn't this look yummy? This camera is crazy today. Doesn't that look yummy? Folks, you can make this. Thank you, Amy. That's my MBA friend. You all can make this. I challenge you to make it. Play this video back and watch me do what I do. It's super, super simple. And you can put whatever you want in this bowl. You can put edamame if you want. You can put snow peas in it if you want. You can use red cabbage to make it really beautiful and add that crunchiness to it. There's so much that you can do. Look at this. This is 100% vegan, spicy tuna. It's like a poke bowl. I think that's how you pronounce it. Is it pokey or poke? I think it's pokey. I don't know. Whatever it is, it's delicious. And this is the vegan plant-based version. Thank you all so much. Hey, Tracy. Oh, my MBA friends. I'm so excited. Thank you for joining me from my little makeshift kitchen. I look forward to seeing you all next week, where we're going to whip up some more good health on Reclaiming Your Health. Bye-bye.